Hello everyone, this is Suneve, and I'm coming to you with Experiment, a Jeff the Killer X-Reader by The Perfect Blur. I'm going to be starting off with Chapter 52. Sighing lowly, I placed down the scalpel onto the surgical table. The patient's blood, which stained the blade, instantly started to soak up into the blue paper towel that the scalpel laid upon. I felt bad for the patient. They didn't deserve to die. They were just like me, tortured, abused, and alone. And I would have understood why they would want to help, but then again, I just assumed by Jeff's words. Maybe they didn't want to help and just wanted to leave this place and never return. I'm such a fool. A small tear of regret falls down my cheek as I raise my hand over the patient's eyes, softly pulling down their eyelids with my fingers and closing their eyes. It wouldn't have lasted 10 minutes out there in that condition. You did the right thing. Jeff states as he tightens the straps around Dr. Manning's wrists and ankles. This is a person, Jeff, not an it. I scoff angrily, giving him a glance before moving my eyes back down to the patient who lay before me. Well, they're so mangled from the torture, I can't tell if they're a male or a female. Grunting, I make my way over to Jeff, standing over the doctor as he lay defenseless and unconscious on the hospital bed. So, what's the plan now? Jeff asks, looking in my direction as if to wait for my order of what was going to happen next. Well, let's give him a surprise to wake up to. I wink with a sly grin. Jeff chuckles with a nod, heading over to the cabinet that hung on the wall at the back of the room, opening it and grabbing a type of saw used to cut through bone. Making his way back over and handing me the saw whilst he takes the hammer from the other bed and stands on the other side of the doctor, opposite me. We give each other a nod before getting to work. Placing the saw just below his right knee, I gently push the teeth against his skin before yanking the saw back, then forcing it forward. Blood spits at my face as his flesh tears beneath the sharp teeth. Grinning, I yank it back and forth over and over, harder and faster, blood squirting everywhere, practically soaking my hospital gown as I was still wearing from the nurse. I continue to saw faster and faster, listening to his bone grind and his flesh rip, until his lower leg was nearly off, but I leave the last little piece attached by the flesh. Jeff, on the other hand, continuously smashed the hammer down in his left leg, starting at the toes and making his way all the way up to Dr. Manning's hip, making sure he crushed every single bone in his leg. Listening to the sounds of his bones snapping and crunching was so satisfying. One of his fractures became an open fracture as it burst out of the skin, tearing the flesh as it protrudes out of his leg. Jeff huffs, grabbing the protruding bone, slamming his hand down, forcing it back in, listening to it crunch as it snaps on impact, blood pouring from the wound. Dr. Manning's POV. I slowly open my eyes, only to be blinded by a bright overhead light, causing me to squint as I look around. Everything around me was blurry and hard to focus on. I could hear movement and metal clanging beside me, but even that was muffled and echoed. I watch with confusion as a blurred female figure approaches me, leaning down in front of me and injecting something into my neck. Her face remains in front of mine as she waits. I watch her intensively, trying to focus on her face, but eventually, whatever was in the needle started to work as I started to see more clearly and hear better. Her blurred face slowly merged back into one in focus, but once I saw her features, I was instantly terrified. Hello, Doctor. Remember me? She chuckles with an evil grin, leaning back to stand straight, and I go to react, but instant pain floods my entire body. The agony was practically paralyzing. What have you done to... I tried to move once again, but that just caused more pain. Raising my head slightly, I looked down to my legs and couldn't help but scream and yell. My right leg had been cut off at the knee, and the wound still open and bleeding, and the lower half of my leg still attached by small threads of skin dangling loosely. My left leg had been completely crushed and mangled, and I couldn't even raise it as all joints were destroyed. We had some fun while you were unconscious, but now that you're awake... She paused, leaning down so her face was only inches away from mine. Time for the real game to start. She giggles evilly, kissing me softly on the cheek and lowering down to my ear before whispering, We're going to have so much fun playing with you, Doctor. She raised back up to stand straight. I couldn't stop panting as my breathing became heavier and heavier, faster and faster as I panic. Who is we? I instantly regret asking that question as this figure slowly walks out from the shadows of the room, standing over me. You're the... I couldn't get my words out as the pain and shock was too much to bear. I had seen his face before, plastered everywhere on the streets on wanted posters. He's one of her multiple killings and massacres, and I begin to fear for my life as my two worst nightmares stand before me, grinning at me sadistically like predators toying with its prey. Chapter 53, Reader's POV. Please don't. Don't what, huh? Hurt you? That's rich. How does it feel, Doctor? How does it feel to be so weak and helpless? Dr. Manning tried to plead us not to hurt him, but I instantly interrupt him before he even got the chance. I've pleaded many times all throughout those years, and never once did you stop and have mercy. Not one time did you stop. I yell, grabbing the collar and yanking him forward, to which he groans as his shoulders strain and pull due to his wrists being strapped down. Let's see how you like it. I growl, shoving him back down, to which he instantly begins to beg me not to hurt him and let him go, telling me that he wouldn't torture anyone else and that he'll retire. I don't want you to retire, Doctor. I want you to feel what I felt, experience the pain and torment I went through. I want you to die. I scream, grabbing his right leg and yanking it as hard as I can. The threads that remain attached peel up his leg, ripping the skin all the way up to his lower back until it tears away. Blood gushing from his strip wound, it was like someone peeled a banana. Only this wasn't fruit, it was human flesh. He yells out in agony, smashing his head back against the bed as he grinds his teeth, saliva spitting out his mouth as he cries out in pain, gasping harshly. Tossing the leg to the side, I glance Jeff a look, to which he hands me the hammer he previously held. Turning it in my hand so that the claw part would strike, not the round face, I would take a strong swing, smacking the middle claw right into the open stump wound of his leg, directly under the bone. Dr. Manning yells out as his back arches, his leg twitching vigorously. Holding the hammer handle tightly, I push it deeper into his wound, twisting it before yanking it out, creating a hole with a stub. Throwing the hammer down, I grab his thighs and raise his legs so his stump was in the air. Jeff, if you would be so kind as to help me, I say with a cheeky yet evil grin. Jeff chuckles menacingly as he stares at Dr. Manning before walking away, soon returning in minutes with 3 different things: a lemon, salt, and hydrochloric acid. What are you? No. The doctor was interrupted by his own ear-piercing screams as Jeff slices open the lemon, squeezing the juice into the open wound, to which he then poured in the salt, filling the wound. The doctor thrashed around dramatically as he screamed and yelled in intense pain. You know, Doctor, hydrochloric acid is strong enough to burn through metal. Just imagine what it would do to the skin. I squeal, giving Jeff a nod, to which he opens the bottle and pours half of it onto the open leg wound, and instantly began to sizzle and soak into his flesh, causing the skin to bubble or boil and begin to melt away the flesh and eventually bone. Taking Jeff's knife, I stab the blade down into the doctor's cheek on his face, stretching it open and pouring the acid into his mouth. Down his throat, he instantly chokes and gags, coughing up blood as the acid melts his throat, leading down into his lungs, dissolving them with ease. It wasn't long before the doctor lay dead before me, bubbling acid dribbling out of his mouth, melting his cheek to reveal his teeth, which also began to dissolve. The moment Dr. Manning finally died, I instantly fall to the floor and cry. I wasn't sad, not in the slightest. I was happy. Happy that I got my revenge at last. Finally, it's done. It's finally done. I couldn't help but laugh hysterically, wiping the tears away from my eyes and staggering back up to my feet, lunging onto Jeff, hugging him close, to which he returns the embrace. So, how did it feel about getting revenge? Jeff asks with a smirk as he pulls away. You have no idea how good that felt, I say with a smile, so pleased with my work. Well, it's not over yet. We still have Slender to deal with. Chapter 54. It was proving difficult to leave the hospital. It seemed that someone found the dead nurse in one of the rooms and called the police. The entire building was full of them. I wanted to go to Sakura's room before we left, but judging by how many police officers there were, I don't think that would be a wise idea. We needed to leave, and fast. Ugh, what are we going to do? We stand out like a sore thumb. Jeff groans as we hide away in a small closet full of mops, buckets, and other cleaning products. Sighing, I take a glance at Jeff, but instantly realize he couldn't be more wrong. Jeff was still wearing the guard's outfit from before, and I still wore the hospital gown. Jeff, we're in the perfect disguise. Have you forgotten you're soaked in blood that isn't yours? He interrupts agitated. Although he was snappy, he did have a point. Besides, even if we can get you another gown, I don't have the hat to hide my face. He growls, waving his hand in front of him. Okay, well, where are our... I stop myself as my eyes slam open and my jaw drops. Jeff gives a confused look, but I ignore that and spin around, opening the door and peeking out. Sir, I found these in the room with the body. Pulling myself back in, I quickly shut the door, banging my hand against my head angrily. Fuck. I left my clothes in the room with the nurse. So we can go get them. I groan with annoyance, grinding my teeth, trying to prevent myself from ripping out my own hair from stress and irritation. The police just found my clothes, Jeff. I sigh, leaning my back against the door and slowly slumping down to the floor. There must be something. Jeff looks around the room, searching the top shelves and even behind some of them. I watch him out of interest, but I knew he wasn't going to find anything. However, he suddenly pauses, turning his head in my direction, showing a cheeky, mischievous grin. Yes, sir, I can try to remember. A girl burst through the door covered in blood, and the nurse took her to a recovery room, but I haven't seen either of them yet. I inform one of the policemen as he stands tall in front of me with a straight and professional manner. Thank you, ma'am. Do you recognize these clothes? He asks, signaling to another officer. by which he approaches holding some blood-covered clothes in an evidence bag. Yes, I do. These are the clothes the injured girl wore. The policemen nod to each other, and one takes notes in his pocketbook. Fresh blood was found on these clothing items. We're assuming it's the nurse's blood, but we cannot be sure until we do some tests. If you saw this girl again, would you be able to identify her face? I felt so bombarded with questions it was making my head grow fuzzy, but I tried my best to remember what the girl looked like. It was hard to tell. She had so much blood on her face, and I couldn't see any strong features. Is there anything at all you noticed? Did she have any scars, piercings, tattoos maybe? I understand he was trying to do his job, but I was just starting to become frustrated by his constant pushing, trying to get more answers when I've already told him I don't know. I suddenly stop when I hear wheels of mop buckets being pushed along the hallway. Two cleaners wearing dark gray overalls, black boots, and a matching gray cap walk out of pushing a mop bucket full of water, heading towards the door. Hey, wait a second. The officer interrogating me calls, to which they stop, but they keep their heads facing downward. Did you two see anything? He asks as he slowly makes his way over to them. I saw nothing. I've only just arrived. One of them spoke, clearly male. His voice was deep and raspy. In a way, it sounded quite attractive. I wish I could have seen his face, but the moment he stops talking, he wheels the bucket towards the doors and leaves the hospital. My guess was they were heading to clean the front path. What about you? Did you see anything? One cleaner was left behind, by which the officer was now stood beside on the right side. I'm sorry, I didn't see a thing. I'm not sure what happened, but I hope it gets sorted soon. The cleaner replies, clearly a female. She places her bucket in the corner of the room before leaving out the door. It was weird. Something about her voice was oddly familiar. I just couldn't think from where I heard her voice before. Somebody help me, please. Please, he's coming to kill me. A voice echoed inside my head. Everything okay, ma'am? The officer asks as he approaches me. It's her. Excuse me. Officer, it's her, that cleaner. She's the girl. I recognize her voice. It's her. I vigorously point towards the door, almost bursting into tears as I try to explain, and the officer wastes no time in calling his fellow officers, calling for backup that they had let a lead on a suspect. That bitch is going to get what she deserves for killing my best friend. That is the end of those chapters. Chapter 55 is the chapter after this one. Oh my god, we are 55 out of 60 chapters. Ugh. I'm so sorry. My stuttering is really bad today. But I hope you guys enjoyed that, and let me know how you feel about it. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.